Is it better than Tokyo Ghoul? Can it be better than Tokyo Ghoul? And my answer to this question is yes. It can fill its shoes and even do much, much more. And if done right, it can easily surpass Tokyo Ghoul and become one of the best mangas out in a long time. For starters, when it comes to Choujin X's power system, Sui Ishida isn't constrained by the idea and concept of ghouls and the use of Queen K and Kagune. You see, unlike with ghouls, with Choujin, they have no limit to what kind of powers they have. As we've seen in the first chapter, a Choujin had used smoke power. This is something that would have never been done in Tokyo Ghoul. And not only just that, our main protagonist, Tokyo, has a bestial Choujin ability. And he even took the form of a bird while thinking of a vulture. This is one aspect of Choujin X that I prefer in comparison to Tokyo Ghoul. When it comes to Choujin X, there's a sense of mystery towards what type of superhuman you're going to run into next. Not one ability is going to be the same. And that came across very clearly in just only 2 chapters. You have guys turning into animal monsters, you have smoke coming out of fingers, and you also have long necks. What that mouth do? But in all seriousness, because Choujins are such a good idea, this allows Sui Ishida to have limitless creative freedom, and he can do whatever he wants with any type of Choujin. You see, Tokyo Ghoul had a lot of constraints. It was more of a controlled story. But Choujin X is the exact opposite, and this allows it to explore areas that Tokyo Ghoul could not. Due to the power system involving Kagune, Queen K, and everything else surrounding the Tokyo Ghoul verse, Sui Ishida was limited to that concept. But right here in Choujin X, there are no limits. Rather than seeing the occasional monster tentacle, monster tail, alien looking gun, or maybe a special sword with an attachment, you already have a basic idea of how a fight in Tokyo Ghoul would play out. And now with Choujin X, these fights will have the potential to be something that we've never seen before. Thanks to having the idea of people with superpowers, Sui Ishida won't have anything holding him back when it comes to writing and creating fight scenes that are out of this world. With just a character who possesses smoke as an ability, we can finally see how someone with a smoke power would fight a person who has vulture powers. Now just think about that. How does someone with smoke powers fight someone with vulture powers? How do vulture powers even work to begin with? You see, this is what I mean by Sui Ishida being able to flex his creativity and have nothing holding him back with this series. Due to the simple fact of this manga just being a great idea. Another thing that really just makes this so amazing in comparison to Tokyo Ghoul is that Choujin X can have more than one vibe. Not only will it be able to pluck at your emotions, but it can also make you laugh, and that is something that Tokyo Ghoul really just could not do. Tokyo Ghoul is depressing, and it felt like it was constrained to one simple idea and one specific style, and this is something that Choujin X does not suffer from. Not that Tokyo Ghoul doing this is a bad thing in the first place, but this allows Choujin X to do so much more that Tokyo Ghoul could not do, and it allows us to see Sui Ishida express a lot more of himself into his work. What would be funny to Sui Ishida? This is a question I always wondered, but I could never find that answer to Tokyo Ghoul, because Tokyo Ghoul was just such a sad story that it really didn't have room to be funny. But with Choujin X, I more or less get a better idea on what Sui Ishida would find funny, because he's able to actually add his own personal comedy into the manga. For instance, we had an entire set piece focused on comedy with a tractor in Choujin X. We would have never had a scene like this happen in Tokyo Ghoul due to the series focusing more on darker themes. And this isn't to say that Choujin X can't be as dark as Tokyo Ghoul, because there have been a few dark moments present in the story already. What makes Choujin X great is that it can just so happen to be as dark as Tokyo Ghoul, yet also focus its story in other areas. Choujin X can be just like Tokyo Ghoul and do so much more with its story. And another aspect about this story that I really appreciate that Sui Ishida has brought to the table is the possibility of a rival character. Unlike Hide and Kaneki, where it more or less felt like Hide was a bystander in Kaneki's life, the relationship between Azuma and Tokyo feels a lot more direct, and it allows the relationship between the two to feel a lot more concrete. And this is because, unlike in Tokyo Ghoul, with Choujin X, Tokyo and Azuma have the opportunity to grow as characters together, which allows not only for the friendship of these two characters to not only be grounded, but also the development of these characters. What makes the relationship of Tokyo and Azuma so great is that the both of them feel like equals. This was a dynamic that was missing in Tokyo Ghoul, due to us seeing everything from Kaneki's lens, and having Hide go on a wild goose chase after his friend. Hide more or less felt like he was in the back seat of Kaneki's car, and it really just diminished his entire role in the story. Now, unlike Tokyo Ghoul, which more or less felt like Kaneki's story, with Choujin X, it obviously feels like Tokyo's story as well, but the illusion of a main character isn't as strong as it was in Tokyo Ghoul. Because unlike Kaneki, Tokyo is just another guy with superpowers. Tokyo isn't the bridge between two different worlds and trying to make them form a connection in order to usher in an understanding of indifference and peace. You see, Kaneki fills this role, and more or less fills in the idea of what a main character would do. Tokyo just happens to be a guy who lives in a world with a bunch of superpowered maniacs. And even then, by having a superpower himself, he'd be no different than these other Choujin. And with that being said, it really just increases the scale and how dense the world of Choujin X can actually be. Tokyo is really just another guy with superpowers. And with this perspective, it only makes the world around him even more interesting. Because in Tokyo Ghoul, we inevitably knew that they were going to have to deal with the CCG and ghouls. But in Choujin X, you're going to more or less have people use their powers for right, and you're going to more or less have people who are going to use their powers for wrong, which will affect the world around them any which way, unlike Tokyo Ghoul, where society was more or less constrained to the idea of Ghoul is bad and CCG is good. There's a lot of room for world building, which wasn't really present in Tokyo Ghoul, which leads this series to have a lot more potential than its predecessor. And of course, we're now beginning to see Sui Ishida out of his comfort zone. Or I should be saying the exact opposite, because he has so much to work with this series, especially in comparison to Tokyo Ghoul. So I have extremely high hopes for the rest of this manga from here on out.